April 28, 1967, Houston, Texas. The Armed Forces Induction Center on San Jacinto Street, 8:47 in the morning. Muhammad Ali, the heavyweight champion of the world, stood in a beige government building surrounded by armed military personnel, television cameras, and federal agents. In exactly 13 minutes, his name would be called 3 times. 3 times he would refuse to step forward, and in those 3 refusals, he would lose everything he had spent his entire life building: his title, his freedom, his ability to earn money, his passport, everything. But what the cameras didn't capture, what the newspapers never reported, was what happened in the 19 minutes before Ali walked into that building. A conversation in a parking lot that would reveal the real reason behind his decision. A conversation that would explain why the most famous athlete in the world was willing to throw it all away, because this wasn't just about Vietnam, this wasn't just about religion, this was about something far more personal. Something that had been building inside Ali since he was 12 years old, standing on a street corner in Louisville, Kentucky, watching something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Before we go deeper into this story, if you want to discover the most powerful moments in sports history, real stories of courage and sacrifice, and the unknown sides of legendary athletes, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because the story I'm going to tell you today isn't just about boxing or war. It's about the price of principle, the weight of conviction, and what happens when one man decides to stand against an entire government. April 28, 1967, 8:28 in the morning. 19 minutes before the moment that would change everything, Muhammad Ali sat in the back of a black Cadillac in the parking lot of the Armed Forces Induction Center. The driver was Herbert Muhammad, his manager and spiritual advisor. In the passenger seat sat Chauncey Eskridge, Ali's attorney. And beside Ali, smoking a cigarette with trembling hands, sat his younger brother, Rahman Ali, formerly known as Rudy Clay. The car windows were rolled up. Outside, protesters held signs. Some signs read, "Draft Dodger." Others read, "Stand with Ali." Television crews positioned their cameras. Federal agents watched from the building entrance. Inside the car, silence. Ali stared out the window, his jaw clenched, his hands folded in his lap. He wore a dark suit, white shirt, thin black tie. He looked like a man dressed for a funeral. Rahman broke the silence first. His voice was barely above a whisper. "It's not too late, brother. You can still walk in there, take the oath and figure something out later. They'll give you a desk job. You won't see combat. You're Muhammad Ali. They're not going to send you to the jungle." Ali didn't respond. He kept staring out the window. Chauncey Eskridge turned around from the front seat. His briefcase sat on his lap, filled with legal documents that he knew were probably worthless. "Champ, I need you to understand what's about to happen. The moment you refuse, they will strip your title. Not next week, not next month, today. The boxing commissions have already prepared the paperwork. They're just waiting for you to say no." Ali nodded slowly, but still said nothing. Herbert Muhammad cleared his throat. "The government has made their position clear. They believe you're using religion as an excuse. They think you're scared. They think you're a coward who's hiding behind Islam." At that word, coward, Ali's head turned. His eyes met Herbert's in the rearview mirror, and for the first time that morning he spoke. His voice was calm, measured, almost eerily quiet. "I've been called worse," Ali said, "but nobody who's ever been in a ring with me would call me a coward." Rahman leaned forward. "Then why are you doing this? Why are you throwing everything away?" Ali turned to look at his brother, and what he said next, what he was about to reveal, was something he had never told anyone publicly, not the press, not his lawyers, not even his own wife. "Because of what I saw when I was 12 years old," Ali said. "Because of Emmett Till." The car fell silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. Rahman knew the name. Everyone knew the name. Emmett Till, a 14-year-old black boy from Chicago who was tortured and murdered in Mississippi in 1955 for allegedly whistling at a white woman. His killers were acquitted by an all-white jury. His mother, Mamie Till, insisted on an open casket funeral so the world could see what had been done to her son. The photographs were published in Jet magazine. They showed a child so badly beaten, so brutally disfigured, that he was barely recognizable as human. Muhammad Ali, then known as Cassius Clay, was 13 years old when those photographs were published. He saw them at a barbershop in Louisville's West End. He had nightmares for months. But that wasn't the memory Ali was talking about in the parking lot that April morning. He was talking about something that happened a few weeks after those photographs were published, something he witnessed personally. Ali took a deep breath and began to speak. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. It was September 1955. I was walking home from school with Rudy. We took the long way because we wanted to stop by the store and look at the baseball cards. We were walking down 4th Street when we saw a crowd gathering on the corner. Police cars, an ambulance, people standing around, looking at something on the ground. Rahman listened, his cigarette forgotten in his hand, ash growing long. We pushed through the crowd. Ali continued, and there on the sidewalk was a black man. He was wearing an army uniform, Korean War veteran, someone said. He had been beaten, his face was bloody, his uniform was torn, and standing over him were 3 white men. No police were arresting them, no one was helping the soldier. People were just standing there, watching. Ali's voice cracked slightly, but he kept going. One of the white men, he was laughing. He said, "Boy thought because he wore that uniform, he was equal to us, had to teach him different." And the soldier, this man who had fought for his country, he couldn't even stand up. He was just lying there, bleeding on the sidewalk of his own hometown. The car was completely silent now. Even the sounds from outside seemed muted. That night, Ali said, "I asked my father, why didn't anyone help him? He fought for America. He was a soldier." And my father, he looked at me with this expression, I'll never forget, sadness and anger mixed together. And he said, "Son, it doesn't matter what uniform you wear. It doesn't matter what you do for this country. To some people, you'll never be anything but what they see when they look at your skin." Ali turned back to the window. "That's when I understood. That's when I knew. This country will ask you to die for it. It will send you to war. It will put a rifle in your hands and tell you to kill people who never called you names, never lynched your people, never made you sit in the back of the bus. And then, when you come home, if you come home, it will treat you like you're less than human." He looked at his brother, then at Herbert, then at Chauncey. "So when they ask me to go to Vietnam, when they ask me to fight in a war that has nothing to do with defending my people, when they ask me to kill Vietnamese people who have done nothing to me, I think about that soldier on the sidewalk. I think about Emmett Till. I think about every black person who gave their life for a country that never gave them full citizenship in return. And I say no, not because I'm scared, not because I'm hiding behind religion, but because I finally have a choice, and I choose not to be that soldier on the sidewalk." Well, at 8:43 in the morning, the car doors opened. Ali stepped out first, followed by his brother, his lawyer, and his manager. The crowd surged forward. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, protesters chanted. Federal agents formed a corridor leading to the building entrance. Ali walked slowly, his head held high, his face expressionless. He had made this walk hundreds of times before, walking to the ring, walking through crowds of screaming fans. But this walk was different. This time, he wasn't walking toward glory, he was walking toward the end of everything he had built. Inside the building, the atmosphere was clinical and cold. Fluorescent lights, linoleum floors, metal chairs lined against beige walls. 26 other young men sat waiting, all of them there for the same reason, to be inducted into the United States Armed Forces. Some looked nervous, some looked resigned, some looked proud. When Ali entered the room, every head turned. The conversation stopped. Even the federal officials paused in their paperwork. The heavyweight champion of the world, standing in an induction center like a common draftee. A Navy lieutenant commander named Clarence Hartman approached Ali. He held a clipboard and wore an expression that suggested he wanted to be anywhere else but here. "Mr. Clay," Hartman said, deliberately using Ali's former name, "you'll wait here with the others. When your name is called, you'll step forward for processing." Ali corrected him quietly. "It's Ali, Muhammad Ali." Hartman looked at him for a long moment, then made a notation on his clipboard without responding. The waiting began. Ali sat in one of the metal chairs. Rahman sat beside him. The other young men in the room kept glancing over, whispering to each other. One of them, a white kid from East Texas who couldn't have been more than 19, leaned over. "Mr. Ali," the kid said, his voice respectful, almost reverent, "I just want to say, I saw you fight Cleveland Williams. That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen." Ali nodded. "Thank you, brother." The kid hesitated, then said, "Are you really going to refuse?" Ali looked at him. "Yes." "Why?" the kid asked. "I mean, no disrespect, but they're going to destroy you. They're going to take everything." Ali smiled, but it was a sad smile. "They can take my title. They can take my passport. They can take my right to earn a living, but they can't take my soul. They can't make me do something I believe is wrong." The kid sat back in his chair, processing this. Then he said something that Ali would remember for the rest of his life. "I wish I had your courage, Mr. Ali. I don't want to go to Vietnam either. None of us do. But I don't have a choice." Ali turned to look at the young man. "What's your name, brother?" "Tommy. Tommy Henderson." "Tommy," Ali said, "you do have a choice. You always have a choice. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price for making it." Tommy looked down at his hands. He didn't say anything else. At 9 in the morning exactly, the processing began. Lieutenant Commander Hartman stood at the front of the room with a list of names. One by one, he called the young men forward. One by one they stepped up, raised their right hands, and took the oath of induction into the United States Armed Forces. The process was mechanical, almost ritualistic. Name called, man steps forward. Oath administered, man becomes soldier. Name called, man steps forward. Oath administered, man becomes soldier. Name called, over and over. Ali watched each one. Some of the young men looked relieved, as if the uncertainty was finally over. Some looked terrified. Some looked blank, dissociated, already trying to distance themselves from what was happening. At 9:13 in the morning, Hartman called a name, Cassius Marcellus Clay. The room went silent. Everyone knew this was the moment. Ali remained seated. Hartman called the name again, louder this time, Cassius Marcellus Clay. His hands rested on his knees. His eyes stared straight ahead. The third time, Hartman's voice had an edge to it. "Cassius Marcellus Clay, you are ordered to step forward." Ali spoke without standing, his voice clear and firm. "My name is Muhammad Ali, and I respectfully decline to be inducted into the Armed Forces of the United States." The room erupted, not with noise but with tension so thick it felt like the air itself had solidified. Hartman's face reddened. He looked at a federal agent standing by the door, who nodded. Hartman approached Ali directly. "Mr. Clay, I need to inform you of the consequences of your refusal. You will be subject to criminal prosecution. You face up to 5 years in federal prison and a $10,000 fine. Do you understand these consequences?" "I understand," Ali said. "And you still refuse?" "I do." Hartman stepped back. He made a notation on his clipboard, then called the next name on the list. The process continued as if nothing had happened, but everything had happened. In those 3 refusals, in that simple statement, "I respectfully decline," Muhammad Ali had just committed career suicide. The news spread instantly. Within minutes, reporters outside the building were broadcasting the story. Within an hour, the New York State Athletic Commission held an emergency meeting. Within 2 hours, they had stripped Ali of his boxing license and his heavyweight title. Within 3 hours, every other state athletic commission in America had followed suit. Muhammad Ali, undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, was no longer allowed to box anywhere in the United States. He was 25 years old, in the physical prime of his life, at the peak of his abilities, and his career was over. By that afternoon, the backlash had begun. Newspapers across the country condemned him. Politicians called him a traitor. Former champions said he had disgraced boxing. The hate mail started arriving by the thousands. Death threats, racist slurs, promises of violence. But there was something else too, something the mainstream media didn't report, didn't want to acknowledge. In black communities across America, in college campuses, in the growing anti-war movement, Ali's refusal became a rallying cry. Here was the most famous athlete in the world, a man who had everything to lose, standing up and saying no to the government. saying no to a war that was killing tens of thousands of young men, disproportionately black and brown, in a country thousands of miles away. Young men who, like that soldier Ali had seen on the sidewalk in Louisville, would come home to a country that still didn't consider them fully human. If you're still watching this story, if Ali's courage is resonating with you, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment about what sacrifice and principle mean to you. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these powerful untold stories to light. 2 months later, June 20th, 1967, Muhammad Ali stood in a federal courthouse in Houston. The trial for draft evasion had been swift. The government wanted to make an example of him. They wanted to show that fame and fortune didn't exempt you from military service, that refusing the draft had consequences. The prosecution's case was straightforward. Ali had refused induction. He was not eligible for conscientious objector status because he was not opposed to all wars, only to what he called unjust wars. He was a member of the Nation of Islam, which the government did not recognize as a legitimate pacifist religion. Therefore, he was guilty of draft evasion. The defense argued that Ali's beliefs were sincere, that he was a minister in his religion, that forcing him to fight in Vietnam would violate his First Amendment rights to freedom of religion. The trial lasted 1 day. The all-white jury deliberated for 20 minutes. 20 minutes to decide the fate of the most famous athlete in the world. They returned with a verdict: guilty. The judge, Joe Ingram, sentenced Ali to 5 years in federal prison and a $10,000 fine. Ali's lawyers immediately filed an appeal, which meant Ali would remain free while the case wound through the court system, but the damage was done. He couldn't fight. His income disappeared overnight. The man who had been earning millions was suddenly broke, reduced to giving speeches on college campuses for a few $100s per appearance. And during those speeches, something remarkable happened. Ali found his true voice. In the ring, he had been the greatest. On the microphone, he had been entertaining, provocative, quotable. But now, speaking to auditoriums full of students, activists, and regular people who were questioning the war, questioning their government, questioning everything they'd been told, Ali became something more than a boxer. He became a symbol, not just of black pride, though he was that, not just of religious conviction, though he was that too. He became a symbol of the power of individual conscience, of the right to say no, of the possibility that maybe, just maybe, the government could be wrong. One speech in particular, delivered at Howard University in 1968, captured this transformation. Ali stood at the podium, no longer wearing a suit, but dressed in a simple shirt and slacks, and he spoke without notes, without preparation, straight from his heart. "They want you to go to Vietnam," Ali said. "They want you to go fight for freedom in Vietnam, but we don't have freedom here. They want you to go die for democracy in Vietnam, but we don't have democracy here. They call it the land of the free. But if I want to practice my religion, if I want to follow my conscience, they take away my right to work. They take away my right to travel. They take away my freedom. So tell me, what exactly am I supposed to be fighting for over there?" The auditorium erupted in applause, but Ali wasn't finished. "I'm not saying I'm braver than anyone else. I'm not saying my way is the only way, but I am saying this. Each of you has to decide what you believe. Each of you has to decide what principles you're willing to suffer for. Because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And this government is counting on you falling. They're counting on you being too scared to say no. They're counting on you valuing comfort over conscience." He paused, looking out at the sea of young faces. "Don't let them be right about you." For 3.5 years, Muhammad Ali didn't fight. From April 1967 to October 1970, the greatest boxer in the world was banned from the sport. Those years became known as Ali's wilderness years. He was in his mid-20s, the absolute physical prime for a heavyweight boxer. These should have been his peak earning years, his championship years, his legacy-defining years. Instead, he spent them fighting a different kind of battle. He gave speeches. He appeared on talk shows where hosts tried to trap him, tried to make him look unpatriotic, tried to get him to back down. He never did. He made a few dollars here and there through personal appearances, endorsements from black-owned businesses, and the generosity of supporters. But mostly he struggled. His first marriage collapsed under the pressure. His second wife, Belinda, formerly known as Khalila Ali, would later describe this period as the most difficult of their lives. They had small children, they had bills, they had death threats arriving in the mail every week, and they had the constant fear that Ali would be arrested and sent to prison. The appeal process dragged on. Month after month, year after year, Ali and his legal team fought the conviction. The case went from district court to appeals court. Each time the government argued that Ali was not entitled to conscientious objector status. Each time, Ali's lawyers argued that his religious beliefs were sincere and protected by the Constitution. In the meantime, the world kept turning. The Vietnam War intensified. The casualties mounted. The anti-war movement grew. And public opinion about Ali began to shift, slowly at first, then faster. The same newspapers that had called him a traitor in 1967 were publishing opinion pieces in 1969, questioning whether the ban on Ali was fair. Sports writers who had condemned him were now writing that boxing needed Ali back. Even some politicians who had called for his imprisonment were backing away from their earlier statements. What changed? Part of it was the war itself. By 1969, the Vietnam War had become deeply unpopular. The Tet Offensive in 1968 had shattered the government's claims that the war was being won. The My Lai massacre had revealed atrocities committed by American soldiers. The draft lottery had made middle-class white families realize their sons were at risk too. Suddenly, Ali's position didn't seem so radical. It seemed prescient. Part of it was the cultural shift happening in America. The civil rights movement had evolved. Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated. Cities had burned in riots. The Black Power movement had risen. Young black Americans were no longer asking politely for equality. They were demanding it. And Ali, who had stood up to the government, who had sacrificed his career for his beliefs, became a hero to this new generation. But part of it, perhaps the biggest part, was simply time. As the months turned into years, as Ali remained consistent in his message, as he refused to back down or compromise, people began to realize something. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This wasn't a young man being rebellious. This was a matter of genuine conviction. Ali believed what he said, and he was willing to pay the ultimate price for those beliefs. October 26, 1970. Atlanta, Georgia. The Municipal Auditorium. After 3.5 years away from boxing, Muhammad Ali was finally given a license to fight in Georgia, one of the few states where the Athletic Commission was willing to defy the national ban. His opponent was Jerry Quarry, a tough white heavyweight from California. The fight sold out instantly. The whole world wanted to see if Ali still had it. Could he return after 3.5 years away? Could he compete at the highest level? Or had the layoff destroyed his skills, his timing, his speed? Ali entered the ring that night, carrying more than just the hopes of his fans. He carried the weight of every person who had supported him during the wilderness years, every college student who had cheered his speeches, every young black person who saw him as a symbol of resistance, every person who had questioned the war and found courage in Ali's stand. The fight itself was almost anticlimactic. Ali knocked out Quarry in the third round. He was rusty, sure, his timing was off, he got hit more than he used to, but he was still Ali, still fast, still skilled, still beautiful to watch. After the fight in the locker room, Ali sat on the training table, his hands still wrapped, his face barely marked. A reporter asked him, "Champ, was it worth it? 3.5 years away from boxing, millions of dollars lost, your prime years gone. Was it worth it?" Ali looked at the reporter for a long moment. Then he smiled. Not the showman smile he used to give. A different smile, quieter, more genuine. "Let me tell you something," Ali said. "I could have taken that oath. I could have done my 2 years, worked a desk job, come back to boxing, made my millions. Nobody would have blamed me. I'd still be champion. I'd be rich. I'd be famous. But every time I looked in the mirror, I'd know I compromised. I'd know I did something I believed was wrong, just to keep my comfort, just to keep my money." He paused. "So yes, it was worth it, because I can look in the mirror now. I can look my children in the eye. I can stand before God if that day comes and say I lived according to my principles. Can you put a price on that? Can you put a price on your soul?" June 28, 1971, Washington, D.C. the United States Supreme Court. 4 years after Ali's refusal, his case had finally reached the highest court in the land. The question before the court was simple but profound. Did Muhammad Ali's religious beliefs entitle him to conscientious objector status, or had he rightfully been convicted of draft evasion? The justices had been deliberating for months. The case was complicated. Ali wasn't a Quaker or a Mennonite or a member of a traditionally pacifist religion. He was a Muslim, specifically a member of the Nation of Islam, a group the government viewed with suspicion and hostility. But Ali's lawyers had made a compelling argument. The law didn't require you to be opposed to all violence in all circumstances. It required you to be opposed to participating in war based on religious training and belief. Ali was a minister in his faith. He had studied Islamic texts. He had demonstrated consistent opposition to the Vietnam War based on his understanding of Islamic principles. By any reasonable standard, his objection was sincere and religious in nature. On June 28th, the Supreme Court issued its decision, 8-0. The conviction was overturned. One justice, Thurgood Marshall, had recused himself because he'd been Solicitor General when the case began. The other 8 justices unanimously agreed. Muhammad Ali's refusal to be inducted was based on sincere religious beliefs. The government had failed to properly consider his application for conscientious objector status. He was not guilty of draft evasion. Ali was vindicated. 4 years after saying no, 4 years after losing his title, his license, his income, 4 years after being called a traitor, a coward, a draft dodger, the Supreme Court had ruled in his favor. But by then, something interesting had happened. The vindication almost didn't matter anymore, because Ali had already won the more important battle. He had won the battle for his own soul. In 1974, 7 years after refusing induction, Muhammad Ali did the impossible. He defeated George Foreman in Zaire to reclaim the heavyweight championship, the Rumble in the Jungle, one of the greatest sporting events in history. Ali, at 32 years old, after years away from boxing, after being told he was finished, proved he was still the greatest. He would hold the title again. He would fight legendary battles against Joe Frazier and other champions. He would cement his legacy as not just a great boxer, but perhaps the greatest athlete of the 20th century. But here's what's remarkable. When people talk about Muhammad Ali today, when they celebrate his legacy, when they build statues and museums and documentaries about his life, it's not just about his boxing, it's not just about his speed, his skill, his championships. It's about April 28, 1967. It's about the day he said no. It's about the fact that when the government tried to force him to compromise his principles, he refused, even when it cost him everything, even when the whole country turned against him, even when he faced prison and poverty and the destruction of everything he'd worked for. He said no, and in saying no, he gave permission to millions of other people to say no, to question authority, to follow their conscience, to believe that individual principles matter more than government orders. The soldier Ali saw beaten on that sidewalk in Louisville never got his moment of vindication. Emmett Till never got justice. But Muhammad Ali, by refusing to be another black man sacrificed for a country that didn't fully recognize his humanity, by standing firm in his beliefs, created a different kind of legacy. He showed that you don't have to accept the role society assigns you. You don't have to fight wars you believe are unjust. You don't have to compromise your soul for comfort or wealth or fame. You can say no. And sometimes, if you're willing to pay the price, if you're willing to stand alone when the whole world is against you, you can change the world. If this story moved you, if Ali's sacrifice taught you something about courage and conviction, please subscribe to this channel. We bring you the untold stories of legends who changed the world, one principled stand at a time. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. On April 28, 1967, in a parking lot in Houston, Muhammad Ali told his brother why he was about to throw away his career. It wasn't really about Vietnam. It wasn't really about boxing. It was about a 12-year-old boy seeing a soldier beaten on a sidewalk. It was about understanding that some things matter more than money or fame or comfort. It was about deciding what kind of man he wanted to be. In the years after his refusal, after his vindication, after his return to glory, Ali was asked many times if he had any regrets. His answer never changed. "I don't regret standing up for what I believed in," Ali would say. "The only thing I regret is that more people didn't stand with me, that more people didn't have the courage to follow their conscience." But here's the truth that Ali perhaps didn't fully realize. More people did stand with him. Maybe not in 1967, maybe not in 1968, but eventually millions of people, inspired by his example, found their own courage, found their own voice, found their own ability to say no to injustice. That's the real legacy of April 28, 1967, not just one man's refusal, but the permission that refusal gave to everyone else. The permission to believe that your conscience matters, that your principles are worth defending, that you don't have to go along with something just because everyone else is doing it. Muhammad Ali lost 3.5 years of his boxing career. He lost millions of dollars. He lost his title, his freedom to travel, his ability to earn a living. But he never lost the one thing that mattered most. He never lost himself. And in the end, that's the greatest victory of all.